One thing that I think about is that I rely heavily on the well-being of my body, and it's particularly because I have like a mentality, like I'm in my 20s, and so I don't know anybody that's really happy when, in these first years of their life. It's like, I don't think that I was sold the idea that I would be in a particularly stable situation, and so I already kind of gambled my 20s on the well-being of my body, just kind of throwing myself into things that I specifically have an interest in, not just gambling away my time, and seeing how far I could get through those things. And I'm figuring out my physical limitations, but the issue is that because I'm dealing with physical limitations, it's more difficult for me to understand, the different balances in my mind, like what are my actual mental limitations. And I think that when I was in a more stable situation, just doing, where I was a supported graduate student, I was able to think about my mental limitations because, I could think about how maybe my pride or my stubbornness was getting in the way of the intellectual merit of the things that I was doing. I could step back and say, well, maybe there is an issue with me having overconfidence in the work that I do, to the point of me not applying the same degree of critical thinking to my own effort as I do to other people's, or even to the point of being a little bit unethical. Like, sometimes I'd want to get a result fast, and it was partly because of the pressures around me, and that would mean that later down the line, bigger issues would come up. I think one of the biggest flaws that I have as a human being is that my pressure response, even though it's always decisive, it doesn't take into account the future. Like right now, I can't think about tomorrow. I don't think about the next day. I have a vision for the future, and I have an idea about how one can get there. And so I have an idea of like, what do I need to do every day? And I do those things. So what I mean when I say I don't always think about the future when I'm under pressure is I'm not methodical about it. I don't, it's like the feeling like things won't be okay makes me, impairs my judgment and makes me feel like I need to make a rush decision. So even though my decision making even though I do think about the future and I consider the future to some degree, the degree of consideration is kind of attenuated or like cut short because I don't feel like I have the time to think. I feel the constant pressure of like money and where things are going to be in a couple of years. If I'm not putting myself balls deep into this, doing my very best and kind of pressing, and maybe